All right. So today I have here with me Robin and Andrew Masters, and we are going to be talking about money across generations. And Robin, it's a pleasure to personally meet you and actually see you in person. After reading your bio, I did feel a little bit nervous, wondering, am I going to have enough questions to ask her? Is she going to feel like these questions are juvenile? Like, let's talk a little bit harder questions. So I do appreciate you agreeing to sit and talk with me today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here because I watched all that I could of your stuff that I could find, and I feel the same way. So
thank you so much. And then Andrew Masters, I have here with me as well. And as the VP of marketing and VP of Group and Bermuda, the marketing side of Butterfield. Thank you for not only joining this conversation with your mom, Robin, but just wanting to have this conversation with me about money, because I do know it can feel a little bit odd to talk about money in the presence of your parents, because you might have two different thought processes around money. So thank you for joining me as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. And, this is a important topic to me personally and to my mom. So it's really cool that we get to do this together. So thanks for making it happen.
Perfect. So let's just start the conversation and set the tone for this entire conversation. What does financial well-being mean to you, and how important is it when you think about it in comparison to physical and mental well-being? And Andrew, I'll start with you, and then Robin will come over to you.
I think financial well-being should be thought about as an outcome, right? Like it's a feeling. You're more confident in managing your money, and then you feel more secure in your future. The journey to get there is an individual journey. It's going to be different for everybody. It's not a one size fits all, but ultimately, you want to be able to have the skills and knowledge to take the actions that are right for you. And like you mentioned, I like the word well-being because, we think about going to the gym to deal with our physical well-being. We think about, going out in nature or something for our mental well-being, but we don't really put the same emphasis on financial well-being, and it can cause just as much stress. So, I think we need to normalize talking about it. And that's why, I'm really happy about what you're doing in general and this conversation today.
Thank you. And so Robin, let's switch it over to you. What are your thoughts on financial well-being?
I think financial well-being, as you've both said, it's just another aspect of your life. You have your physical, your mental, and your financial health and well-being. And I like financial well-being as the discussion topic because I've grown to hate the term financial literacy because financial literacy is very binary, and it makes it right out of the gate. You're either literate or you're illiterate. And what's that about, right? Where financial well-being is recognizing that it's more than just money, and it's about your financial wellness is about, as Andrew said, feeling confident, having knowledge, knowing what you don't know, and starting to feel that you can talk to other people and get more information that's going to help you achieve some level of financial well-being. And again, that doesn't mean that you're going to get rid of all your stresses. I mean, just like we talked about financial well-being, physical and mental, it doesn't mean everything gets fixed, but it just means that you start to develop some confidence and understanding about those things.
Right. That's a great, both of you, great answers. And I kind of want to go back to your earliest memories around finances, because when we talk about well-being today, we've had a story, we've had things that have happened to us that got us to this particular position. But your earliest memory around finances, and Andrew, I'll start with you, as far as it being introduced to you, like how did your parents or those persons around you kind of introduce you to money?
Well, my mom's here with me today, but this story is actually about my dad. And only people of a certain age might know what I'm even talking about. But rolling coins, was one of the earliest things I remember. My dad had this cedar box that he would just throw all his coins into, and eventually every month or two it would fill up, and we'd all have to get together and kind of sit in the family room and roll those up. And that really kind of taught me the value of money. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, they all add up to dollars, and everything matters. You shouldn't be just kind of cavalier with any sort of money. So I think that was kind of a good early lesson for me.
And then Robin, switching to you, in using Andrew's story, like how did those type of things happen in the household? Was it just, we're going to do this because we want to keep the money? Or was there something that your parents taught you or something that you learned through your education that kind of made it important for you to do that as a family?
I think the rolling the coins was really his dad's thing. And I'll tell you, he still has the cedar box. And he puts coins in it. There aren't that many, though, anymore. So I think that those coins end up being, you remember to take them to the grocery store so you have something for the packer.
Right.
But that was what your first bank account was funded with, and that's where that money went. I don't know if you know where that money went that you rolled it up, but it went into yours and your brother's bank accounts. No, it was interesting when I was thinking about this question, I don't really have an early memory because I grew up in a house where you didn't talk about money. Like it just was not, like it was one of those taboo subjects. There was never any conversation about it. And I was saying to Andrew on the way over here, it's only now at my ripe old age that I think back on things and I see where there were money, things that were definitely about money that as a child I had no idea. I think you can have just as much money learning when it's almost not even talked about as you do when it specifically is. And I was saying about there's this thing, know your money story. And if you Google that, you'll find that a lot of financial institutions seem to use that, whatever.
Okay.
But what it's about is it's saying that your childhood experiences have the memories that form how you relate to money. And so they give examples about, like, if not having money meant that there wasn't enough food on the table, then money starts to have a certain connotation to it. Money is a problem, right? Or if money was used to reward you or punish you, then there's that association with money, and that everybody has those things from their childhood that they bring into their adulthood. And that's the base they're coming from when they're now when you're trying to deal with your own financial life, is that whether it be baggage or not, that's with you. And again, it's like anything else, that's just money. But other things have happened in your life, and it's all just part of what formed you.
Right, exactly. And so just talking about the family dynamic and the discussions that families have around financial well-being, I just wanted to maybe pause for a moment to just read the room and ask the room, do you think families are still struggling with the topic of money? And do you think it's as taboo, Robin, maybe in your time with your parents, how taboo was to just not talk about money? But Andrew, with your family dynamics, it was more open to talk about. Do you think where we are now, we're better at talking about it as families, or are we still having a lot of challenges that make it still taboo? And either of you can start first.
My sense is that there's more open conversation about money facts. Like what people earn isn't a taboo subject anymore like it was. But I think there's still that element of judgment and shame and all the emotional pieces. I don't think that's changed. And I think those are the barriers that people have to talk openly about it, because I think people still feel if I say something and it shows does it show a weakness? Am I stupid because I did that? So I think that all of that still puts up those barriers and creates reluctance. So I'm not sure that there's more comfort and openness about that emotional side of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think, we still often look at people with a lot of money as kind of like the people that everyone wants to aspire to be. So, if you then find yourself, making a mistake when it comes to managing your own finances, you feel like a certain stigma maybe around that topic and a level of shame, and you don't want to talk about it. And then sometimes not talking about it can make things worse. So I don't know. I mean, again, it's very individual. I think, some families will probably be more comfortable than others, but in general, I don't know that there's been a major shift that I can see. in the topic, but that's what we're trying to change, right? So,
yep. I was just saying, I think this conversation hopefully will make a little bit of sense to people in the first place, but also open up a conversation for them to realize it's not as taboo, it's not as dirty. I feel like there is that shame, like you mentioned, and I was trying to find a different word for dirty, but I really do feel like it does feel like that for some people, like that mental picture around, like you said, if I ask a stupid question, will someone judge me? Just honestly, I don't know what I don't know. And so I'm genuinely coming to someone that I believe has a little bit more information on the topic than me to ask a question. And if I'm immediately made to feel like, you don't know that, like, how come you don't know that? And I think this conversation hopefully will be a catalyst for families or even people in relationships to just whatever that relationship looks like, to just say, hey, I have this question about money, or I'm trying to do this thing in my life as it relates to my finances. Do you know anyone that knows about it, or do you know about it? And I genuinely, like I said at the beginning, and I will say it again, I am grateful for the both of you for being here, because I do think it's important for different generations to be represented in the conversation, so that people, when they are potentially going to someone that's older than them or younger than them for some type of advice, that it's okay. Because people talk about this. Yeah, we really talk about this.
And I think it's interesting what you said about, I know we're talking about family dynamics here today, but also relationship dynamics. I mean, all relationships that you have, in some way have money involved, and, being able to be comfortable talking about it early on. I think you were saying to me the other day about, how many divorces are, still a result of not talking about your finances before you end up getting married, or when you're married. And, I think just anything that you can do to feel more comfortable talking about it with everyone in your life, it's just going to lead to better outcomes.
I agree. Definitely agree. So on the topic of relationships and the dynamics that exist, personalities, money personalities, everyone has them. And so could you each describe what your money personality is? Are you a spender, a saver? And how has that been for you in your life? So we'll start with you, Andrew, and then we'll come over to Robin.
I would say I'm somewhere in the middle, but probably more of a saver these days since I had a kid of my own. I think that, well, a lot of it is impacted by your childhood, the way your personality maybe, but I think it can change as you move through life, as you move through relationships. Maybe you had a certain amount of financial independence when you were younger, and now you have a spouse and, a kid or multiple kids to worry about. You're going to change your priorities a little bit, or hopefully. So, I'm definitely more of a saver now, because I have to think about my son, who doesn't have the ability to set goals for himself yet. And I have to set those for him and plan for him, and, make sure that I dedicate a bit more time to saving, because, as a family now, we have places that we want to go. So.
Right. Love that. Robin, what about you?
By default, I guess I'm a saver because I'm not a spender.
Right.
I think though, and again, we were talking about this when we were walking over here, like we had a bit of a difference about whether people can change. And I think we had the difference though, because we were kind of on different topics, but I think when you talk about personalities, I think you need to always remember that, and I'll keep saying this, right? Money and finances is just another part of your life. So don't think that your personality or your behaviors are going to change when you're dealing with this part of your life than when you're dealing with that part of your life, because you're still the same person, right? So you have to, when you're dealing with all of this, I think you have to recognize your own, the way you react, the way you behave, and what your personality is and your behavior. So yeah, you can change, and you can change by making incremental steps. You can, tips that you hear from people, whatever else, but you have to incorporate that information in a way that's going to work for you and your personality. Because if you don't, then again, you're setting yourself up to not succeed.
Right. I genuinely agree with that. I don't think I know what my personality is yet. I definitely feel like I'm in the middle because I don't have any real dependents that I have to set up goals for. My mom is older than me, so she is technically my dependent in some cases. But for the most part, she's an adult, so she can make her own decisions and set her own goals. So I do find myself teetering between the two, but I am at an age where it's like, you can't spend as much because you have responsibilities. You still can't just be frivolous with your spending. And I have a funny story. When I first got into this was before I was talking about it as an advocate. I kind of was just trying to fix my own, situation. I would always say, I've said this recently, that I used to use my debit card and play Russian roulette. Like, I couldn't tell you how much money was in there. Even if I checked my bank account that morning, by the time I went to tap it at a store, I just prayed it went through. And if it went through, great. There was no bullet in that chamber. But if it didn't go through, then I'm like, what did I overspend on? Or where did I forget to check a bill that came out? Those type of things. And I really found that my personality at the time was very careless, free, because I was in my early 20s. So didn't really have much to be concerned about. Now that I'm mid 30s, I'm like, okay, you just can't play Russian roulette with your debit card anymore. You have to know what's in your bank account or where you're spending the money. Even if, you're off plus or minus a few dollars, you still want to know where your money's going and what you're spending it on, because at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. Like, it's my money that I'm spending. So if I don't know where it's going, how can I ask anyone, even at the bank, where my money went? Like, I'm spending it. If I'm not conscious and intentional with it, it's always going to be not there. I'm always going to be playing Russian roulette with my debit card.
But you said something I think that was important, which is you have a reason, right? And you were talking about having dependents and other people who rely on you, or things that are important to you. So, you have that set of values having nothing to do with money. You have that set of values of what's important to you. And now as you progress, you're kind of seeing, well, wait a minute. Money has a role in that, right? Because this is important to me, and money is going to help me achieve that. So it all becomes tied into one, right? It gives the meaning to it. You're not just doing it because you think, or somebody said, well, you shouldn't spend money on that, right? You have a purpose, and the purpose is back to what's important to you and what you value.
Right. I really appreciate that, because at one point I was definitely just like, you don't know what you're doing with your money. You don't know what you're doing, but tying it to the value. And I do hope that everyone that watches this recognizes that as well. Like, what your values are, what your goals are, those are what drive where and what you spend your money on. And so to touch on that, as far as a family unit, when you're setting financial goals, like, what does that conversation look like, or how can that conversation look like? Because if we're talking about this is potentially a taboo topic, it makes some people feel uncomfortable. How can we approach that in a way that allows the people that we're having the conversation with to feel comfortable about setting a financial goal? Because we can set so many other goals in our lives very easily. Fitness goal, we can check that. I want to walk more. I want to get more steps. That's easy for us. Eating healthy. There's so many goals that are related to our mental and physical well-being that we can do so easily. But when it comes to our financial well-being, how do we approach that particular task?
But isn't your financial goals now going to be part of those goals that you mentioned?
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
So it's not separate. It's all part of your life. It's integrated. But that wasn't your question.
No, but I do feel like that is a key point for anyone that's watching this to recognize that it's now one and the same. It's, if I value my fitness, then what am I going to spend money on that is related to my fitness? Is it going to be a gym membership? Is it a personal trainer? Is it gym outfits? Do I need to look good when I'm working out? Like, is it that big water bottle that has the time on it that tells me by 10 o'clock, drink this much water? Like, those different things. Yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to go with that. Like, well, how do we connect the two, and what does that look like now for us? Like, when we have those goal conversations.
I mean, I think that, what you said you did, just, the most basic thing you can do is just know how much you're earning and how much you're spending. Yeah. Right. Like, once you, get very deep into kind of tracking every single little thing, you might make mistakes, and then you might get discouraged, and, you might then kind of give up what you've been trying to do. And I think, just don't be hard on yourself. Everyone's going to make mistakes. We're all human, and ultimately, this is all very tied into, overall goals, like you're saying, and things that we want. And you just need to kind of, be comfortable acknowledging the fact that money plays a role. And then, that's the first step that you take. And then just try your best from there. I mean, it's also so impacted by what else is going on in the world, right? Like things get more expensive, your life changes. You get interested in new things that you want to spend money on, and, you make new friends. So I think it's a tough question to answer.
Right.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And it's subjective too. Everyone's going to have a different, viewpoint on what they want to do when they want to do it. But I do appreciate the commentary around it, because it lets people know that it's not a clear-cut answer. It's not math. 1 + 1 will always be 2.
Right.
There's certain things in life that are just, like you said earlier, binary when it comes to the term using literacy versus well-being. Some things are going to be that easy to just know. But when it comes to connecting your values with your money, it can be a little gray, because especially if you've never had anyone have a conversation with you about it at all, you will feel overwhelmed. You will feel a little bit uneasy because it's new territory. And anytime we charter on uncharted waters, we do feel a little bit apprehensive. Like, I don't want to be the first.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are probably feeling uncomfortable because they're the first in their family to have this conversation or have these thoughts. And everyone they talk to is like, well, that's not how we did it back in my day, or we never talked about money. And that's because as a child, you shouldn't hear these conversations. You're not old enough to know what's going on, but it's impacting me as a child in the household because I don't know why I can't get the candy that I'm asking you for, or the toy that I see all of my friends have. And there's a valid reason as to why, but all I know is I'm now sad because I can't get this toy, but I don't necessarily connect it to the money side of it because now I'm emotionally, like we said earlier, it's an emotional thing for me, not necessarily a binary financial reason.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
You bring up about with children. So, we did the course I used to run it. I don't do that anymore. The course that's at Bermuda College, the financial literacy series. And, what I think one of the best parts of the course was that we would do these breakout sessions. And so people would go into smaller groups and you'd get a lot more conversation. So we tried not to just be up there. And so, in one of the breakout sessions, somebody came up with, and maybe you've heard of people who did this before, but, she had young children, but she showed them the Belco bill and set up that, there was a challenge to have the bill be lower in the next month. And she said, they would kill each other, to go jumping over each other and turn off the lights, right? They were so engaged in it. And then they had such a sense of pride when the next month they could see they brought the bill down.
Right.
So she turned it into a game, but it was a game that was talking about money. And then they're seeing how much electricity costs. So then I would hope that as they get older and they go, well, I want the air conditioning on. You go, do you? Mm-hmm. Because you've seen that Belco bill. Do you really need that air conditioning on? So you can start to do these things, like you take your kid to the grocery store and let them see what things cost, right? Or send them off with a list or whatever it is. But you can start to at least, with children, you can start the conversation. You said a lot of people think you can't, but you can. You don't need to tell them. You don't tell a 5-year-old how much money you have, but there's certainly things that you can talk about so that they start to understand money exists, right?
Right. I agree. And I definitely think that that's a great example. Actually, I never thought of that. And I hope someone picks it up because I do think that gamification is definitely where currently in the world, a lot of things are moving to, introduce new topics to different people, regardless of their age. It's to make it a game because at the end of the day, we do enjoy games. They bring fun to us. They bring us joy. So why not teach a lesson through a game? And then hopefully, like you said, it sticks a little longer and it resonates with them so that when they do get to a later portion of their life, there's a light bulb in their head that triggers and oh yeah, I should definitely be conscious of how much like electricity I'm using or how much I'm spending on whatever this thing is. Because I remember when I was younger, we had this game to bring it down, and every month we were able to bring it down by so many dollars, and that was so cool. So yeah, I definitely think that's a cool way to do it. Good way to approach it too. So I did want to to switch gears around habits and talk about habits. And I actually want you guys to talk about each other. So what is the one habit that the other person, so Andrew, in your case, your mom has that you admire, and then Robin, in your case, Andrew has that you admire? And Andrew, I'll start with you.
I think it's more of kind of a general outlook on finances and life, but just, kind of context is key, and thoughtfulness, just trying to, grab or get as much information as possible before you make a decision. That's something that, I've always seen my mom do when it comes to finance, but also with everything in life. Try not to be reactionary, try to, take your time and gather all the pieces up. And then you can decide, with all that information, what to do. And, that's something that has really served me well, to take that on, that kind of analytical, logical approach to things, especially when you're kind of fighting your own natural emotional nature. And even beyond finances, it's just made me more empathetic in life overall. It's like, if I don't know everything about a person, like who am I to judge them, right? Like, I don't know what's going on with them now or in their past. So, I think that kind of habit to take your time before making a decision has been one that's been really influential for me.
I love that. Robin, first of all, how do you feel about that response?
Well, that was nice.
It was very wholesome
to hear. But yeah, I think that, you talk about generational. I think, I got that from my father, right? Like, it was always like, you kind of like get the information and analyze the situation. You don't just jump in, right? Because you kind of, you don't start at the end. You go back to the beginning and try to figure it out to work your way through. So I'm glad to hear that. What do I admire in him would be, I would say that he's doing this, right? And that I think you've, Andrew, always been very good about being aware of what was going on in your financial life. I did worry for a while. He lived in LA, and, I always wanted to ask him, like, how much money are you spending on Ubers? Because you do, like you said, just go in and, like, you don't even, like, it's on your car. But apart from that, right, like, I think that you've always been conscious and aware. And I think you budget in your head, right? You probably don't think of it that way, but I think you budget in your head, because I think you look forward and you kind of have that vision of what's coming in the future and know that, well, I should, or I can, or I can't do this now, because I know that obligation is down the road. So
this is nice that we get to say nice things about each other.
I was going to say it's very wholesome, and I do hope that people take this into their relationships as well, and like be more open about what you admire in someone that you're learning from them, because oftentimes we do things because that's our nature, and we don't necessarily realize how impactful it is on the people in our lives. And it's just good to hear that. Like, even me just listening as the recipient, because I don't know you guys from prior to today, as far as your like personal situation, and just hearing that from the both of you is amazing to hear, because it's the interconnectedness of you as not only relatives, but just obviously two different individuals and how you approach things. It's just nice to hear. I really liked that. I really did enjoy that. And to this particular moment, it's been an amazing conversation with the both of you to just, like I said, hear your thoughts on financial well-being in general, and then just individually how you both think slightly different, but also similar. And so thank you once again for the conversation. And we're going to get to what I like to think is the fun segment, the dollars and cents segment, and it's going to be a quick fire round. So I'm just going to ask you guys a few lighthearted questions, and I just want you to give me either your personal or financial preferences, and I'll start with you, Andrew, and then Robin, I'll come over to you. So you got some time to kind of think of your answers while we go really fast with Andrew. So Andrew, what is one thing you refuse to spend money on?
Parking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll leave 10 minutes early and try to find somewhere for free just so I don't have to pay.
That's a good one. Your go-to splurge.
I mean, I would say that I don't really buy a lot of things. I try to spend my splurges on experiences, like a nice dinner or a concert. Although as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about my growing collection of football kits, which have now branched out even further than Arsenal. So maybe I'm in denial.
Okay, Gunners fan, love that for you.
Yeah.
Would you rather have $1 million or be debt free?
$1 million.
Okay, that's interesting. Budgeting, do you love it or do you hate it?
I don't love it. I try, like I said earlier, I try to just make sure I know that I'm earning more than I'm spending and saving a little. But, once I started to try to put categories in there, I hated it.
Okay. And last one, finish the sentence. Money is
emotional. I think, as much as I wanted to come here today to talk about, tell everyone to go to butterfieldgroup.com and sign up for Nudge, our free financial well-being tool. It's you can do as many lessons or learn skills as much as you want, but you're always going to have things that you want in life, connections that you crave, and, just this human element that you can't remove from money. And, what you really need is just to have some self-empathy. As much as you have financial well-being, you want to have financial self-empathy. Like, let's allow ourselves to make mistakes, because it's a complicated topic. So
very much so. Andrew, you made it through dollars and cents. Now,
okay.
Robin, we are over to you.
Okay.
So first question, what is one thing you refuse to spend money on?
Something that I think is overpriced relative to the alternatives.
Okay. Your go-to splurge.
Handmade stuff, art,
Nice.
jewelry.
Love that.
Go to Bermuda Society of Arts. They got some great stuff.
They do. And I actually have been meaning to go there. So thank you for reminding me.
My new favorite artist. So anyway.
Thank you for that one. Would you rather have $1 million or be debt free?
Oh, it's $1 million.
Same answer. Got it. Budgeting. Do you love it or hate it?
Hate it. And, like I said before, let's move from financial literacy to financial wellness. Let's move from budgeting to just cash planning, because that's what it is. Because a budget is like a diet, and everybody hates a diet, right?
Thank you for that analogy. Love that. Last one. Finish the sentence. Money is
a piece of the bigger picture.
Love that. Short and sweet and to the point. Once again, thank you both for joining me today on this episode of Cash Cafe, which I forgot to mention at the beginning. So we'll definitely have to do that in the intro. I really, once again, enjoyed this conversation with the both of you. Your insights have given me some things to think about personally. And I do hope to continue this conversation with you guys offline. And is there anything either of you want to say before we completely wrap up? Andrew, I'll start with you first.
No, just thank you so much for having us and for hosting this whole series and your passion for financial well-being. It's really great to have you on the radio every week talking about this topic, because we need to talk about it more. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Robin.
I echo everything he said, but as a broader general comment, I would say, and I think you said it earlier, there is no one right answer, and people need to accept that and embrace that. And it's whatever works for you and whatever applies to your circumstance. And you can always fix a mistake, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But thank you both once again. And that's the episode.
All right.
Thank you.